Hi boys and girls. Today we're going to be converting customary measures using our strategy of making a T-chart and using our conversion chart. Hopefully you've been able to download this from home. If you don't have access to a printer for your conversion chart, you can download it, and if your mom or you has a phone, you can screenshot it, and then that way you have a copy with you right there. So you're going to need that, and you're going to need some paper and pencil today. So let's review how we convert measures. So remember the word convert. Convert literally means to change. So when we convert a measure from one to another, we're just changing it. We're not changing the amount. We're just changing the measurement. It's still equivalent. So let's get started. So if you remember, on your conversion chart, it's into two categories. On the left-hand side are your customaries, and on the right-hand side are your metrics. We're not going to worry about metrics today, so I'm actually going to fold this in half just because we don't need to worry about that today. We only need to worry about this side right here. So we talked before spring break about how our measures are divided into three parts. When we converted length, volume and capacity, and weight. We'll get to time later. So let's just talk about length right now. So these are set up from largest to smallest. So mile is the largest unit, yard is the next, foot is the next, and inches is the smallest unit for length with customary measures. So if you have a problem like 12 feet and you want to know how many inches. Well, let's use our strategy. Before spring break, we talked about making good old-fashioned T-chart. It's just an input and output table. So you've got two measures, and when you see those two measures, that's when you know you need to convert. So I've got feet on one side, inches on the other. Now, I don't know my rule yet. I don't have that memorized, so I'm going to go over here to my chart. Let's find our initial rule, and then we can solve the rest, just like an input-output table. Here we go. So feet and inches. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to look for where feet and inches are together. Oh, there it is right there. And I'm literally just going to copy this down. 1 foot, 12 inches, 12 inches. Make sure you're putting those in the right column. Look up there at the top too. Make sure you're getting it in the right place. So I don't know my rule yet because I don't know if I'm going to be going from left to right or right to left yet. So let me just wait. I'm going to go ahead and go fill in what I have up here for my problem. So my first problem is in feet, and I have that measure. So I'm going to make sure I'm going to my feet column. I'm going to put in my 12, and then my inches is my unknown. And so that is my question. So now I can clearly see that I am going from left to right. I'm trying to get to this unknown right here. So I'm going to draw a little arrow, and I'm going to ask myself, okay, how do I get from 1 to 12? Well, that number went up, so that means I'm going to multiply. How do you get from 1 to a 12? Times 12. That's my rule. And so now I simply just have to apply that rule like an input and output table. So I take my 12, I multiply times 12. Hopefully you have that fact memorized, but if you don't, we can work it out. 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 1 is 2. Done with that place, put your 0. 1 times 2 is 2, and 1 times 1 is 1. Add up those partial products, and you get 144. So 12 feet is equal to 144 inches. Let's do a couple of problems with our T-chart strategy. So we're going to go through 3 quick problems, just reviewing how to make up our T-chart, look at the different types of measures, and then we'll be done. So let's look at a first problem. Here's our first problem. Put that over there. Here we go. Can y'all see that? Mrs. Fletcher bought 132 feet of ribbon. How many yards did she buy? Well, the first thing I notice is my words, my measurement words. And I see the word feet and I see the word yard. That tells me length. That tells me I'm going to go over here to length. So before I even start, let me go ahead and let's do our strategy. Let's make a T-chart. I have feet and I have yards. So I'm going to start here with feet. I'm going to put my yards and the abbreviation in the other column. Now, before I begin, I need to find out my initial rule. What is the relationship between feet and yards? So I'm going to come over here, find my feet and yard, feet and yard, feet and yard. Oh, there it is right there. Feet and yard. There's the sentence. So it says here that 1 yard, oh, this one's backwards. 1 yard is 3 feet. Now, I don't know my rule yet because I could be going this way, I could be going this way. I don't know what I'm going to be doing yet. I know it's going to be a rule of 3, but I don't know yet if I'm going to multiply or divide. So let's fill in what else we know, and then we'll get to that. So I have the word feet here, and I've got 132. So I'm going to make sure that that goes in my feet column. Before spring break, I noticed some kids that would take this number and put it in the yards column. So just watch where you're putting that. Feet matches feet. Okay, and then your question says how many yards? That's literally our question, how many yards? So this is my unknown right here. I know that I'm going to be going this way, so I need to ask myself, okay, well, how do you get from 3 to 1? Oh, that number went down. That went down. So that means my rule is going to be what? Divide by 3. So my rule is divide by 3. So just like an input and output table, you just apply your rule. 132 divided by 3. I see some long division there. Let's come over here. So 132 divided by 3. Well, I know that I can't take 1 and divide it 3 ways, so I've got to go to 13. I know that I can do 4 groups because that gets me to 12. Subtract, that leaves 1. 1 is less than 3, so I can continue on. Bring down that 2. How many groups of 3 can you pull out of 12? 4. 4 times 3 is 12. Subtract 0. There's your answer right there, 44. So I know that 132 feet is equivalent to 44 yards. Let me write that down. 132 feet equal 44 yards. And if you want to check yourself, you can do your opposite operation. We divided to find our quotient, but if you want to check yourself, you can multiply your answer. And instead of dividing by 3, let's multiply it by 3, kind of working backwards. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 1 makes 13, and you should have gotten 132. So I know that we're right. So let's go back to our question. How many yards did she buy? She bought 44 yards. Let's do 2 more, and then we'll be done. So those were examples of customary conversions with customary lengths. Let's move on to another measure. Let's move on. Well, let's see, I'm not going to tell you. Let's see if we can figure it out. Let's look at our problem. Here it is. Read that for just a second. Okay. Mrs. Glenn needed 5 gallons of sweet tea for her party. How many quarts of sweet tea does she need? So before I begin, I want to go ahead and I want to look at my measure words. I see the word gallon and I see the word quart. Now I know that those are not length words. I think that those are capacity words, how much volume, how much something can hold. So let's see. So I've got gallons and I've got quarts. So gallons, 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 quarts. Here it is right here. 1 gallon is 4 quarts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this over to the side. I'm going to make my T-chart. I've got gallons and I've got quarts. Now I need to find my rule before I begin. So let's come over here to capacity and here we go. 1 gallon, 4 quarts. There's your rule. Now I don't know if I'm going to be going from left to right or right to left. I know the relationship is a 4. I don't know yet if I'm going to multiply or divide. Let's fill in the rest and then we'll know. So let's look to see what we had. Mrs. Glenn needed 5 gallons. How many quarts? Okay, so 5 gallons is what she needs. That's the number I know. I know the gallons and I know it's 5. So I'm gonna come over here to gallons. I'm gonna write 5. And my question is literally how many quarts? So this is my unknown. I'm trying to get to my unknown. I'm going this way. So then let's look up here. How do you get from 1 to 4? Well, that number went up, so I know I'm gonna be multiplying, and I'm gonna multiply by 4. So then you take your 5, apply your rule, and there you go, 20 quarts. So I can say that 5 gallons equals 20 quarts. So if I go back to my question about Mrs. Glenn, how much sweet tea does she need? She needs 20 quarts, or 5 gallons. Let's do one more, and this time I'm gonna let you read it, and let's see if you can figure out which part of our conversion chart we're gonna be using next. Here's our last, really quickly before we move on. If you don't remember before we went to spring break, we taught some of you our story of King Gallon, so that could have helped you with this as well. You see that 1 gallon has 4 quarts. And so that's another way you could find that rule if the conversion chart is kind of tricky for you. So let's move on to our last problem and then we will be done. Okay, and there you go. Let's read that for just a second. All right. Mrs. Martin's dog weighs 12 pounds. How many ounces does her dog weigh? So I'm looking for my measure words. Let's see. I see the word weighs. I also see the word pounds and I see the word ounces. So that tells me I'm going to be going over here to my conversion chart. Pounds and ounces, those don't sound like length words. Don't sound like capacity. Weight. Weigh, weight. Here we go. Pounds and ounces, there it is right there. Pounds, ounces. 1 pound, 16 ounces. So I'm going to begin by making a T-chart. I have pounds, and funny, that's LB. Don't know where that came from. An ounce is OZ. Where did that Z come from? I don't know. Okay, let's find our initial rule. So here we go. 1 pound, 16 ounces. So just write in that conversion, write in that relationship between those two measurements. It's gonna be 16. I don't know yet if I'm gonna multiply or divide, but I know my rule is gonna be something 16. Let's fill in the rest and then we'll figure it out. So we have 12 pounds. 12 pounds is what I know. And my question says how many ounces? That's my unknown. So this is our unknown. We're trying to get to our unknown. This is our input-output table. This is the way we go. So how do I get from a 1 to a 16? Well, I know that that number went up. So that means I'm going to, what? What do y'all think? Multiply by 16. That's right. So our rule is going to be multiply 16. So just like an input-output table, you literally just take your number, apply your rule, and you will get your output. So here we go, let's solve it. So let's take our 12, let me move that over here. Let's take our 12, multiply by 16. All right, 1s times 1s, 6 times 2, that makes 12. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 1 makes 7. Now I'm done with that, put my 0. And now we're going to do 10s times 1s. So 1 times 2 is 2. And last, 1s times 1. Or I'm sorry, 10s times 10s. So 10 times 10 is a 100. Add up those two partial products. And there you go, 192 ounces. So if you go back to your question, how many ounces does her dog weigh? Well, we can say that 12 pounds is equal to 192 ounces. And there's your answer. I hope this review of making a T-chart helps you with the rest of our lesson today. Good luck.